Okay, so in this screencast, I'm going to teach you how to use an Excel spreadsheet to, first of all, record your data and to create a graph of the data that you collected. Now, we're going to be looking at two abiotic factors here. Abiotic factors being non-living factors that affect species within a particular ecosystem. And here we're going to be looking at light intensity and temperature. And hopefully you've recorded these using the two apps that we've suggested in your lessons. So I've recorded some instructions here. However, I thought it would be useful to go through with you how exactly you're going to create your graph in Excel. So we asked you to collect data at 5 time points throughout the day. And I collected my data between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. every 2 hours. So you can see here that we've got time on the 24-hour clock. And all I want you to do there is type in the number of the hour, but obviously in the 24-hour clock format. So I'm going to type in 10, 12, 14 for 2 o'clock, 16 for 4 o'clock, and 18 for 6 o'clock. And the light intensity data that I recorded was as follows. So it was 308, it was 468 at 12 o'clock, 512 at 2 o'clock, 361 at 4 o'clock, and 301 at 6 o'clock. Now you'll notice that I've not included the units in these rows. There is no need to. And hopefully you're saying that the reason why that is the case is because you've already got the units up here. So I might change that to 24 hours, or leave that there, 24-hour clock for now. Now remember, time is our independent variable, okay, which is the variable that we change, and we know that our independent variable always goes on the x-axis. I'm just going to highlight that in yellow for you. Whereas light intensity, or the variable that we are measuring, is our dependent variable. We know that dependent variables, more often than not, okay, always go on the y-axis. So when we come to create our chart in a second, I just want to make sure that you've got yours the right way round. So all we have to do to create the graph is to highlight the entire area. Now that includes, I'm going to include here the axes titles. We may have to add them in a second. And you know that the data here is what we would call continuous data. Okay, I might just add this here. So continuous data, okay, means that it can be measured on a scale and does not fall into categories. If you were using data that fell into categories, okay, then we would use a bar chart. But because this is continuous data, this means we're going to use a scatter graph. Now, rather than plotting it on graph paper, because you may not have access to it, we are going to do this on Excel together. So here we go. We highlight this area here. We click Insert. We come across to here where we can see lots and lots of different charts. But you'll notice here that there's a scatter graph, insert scatter XY or bubble chart. We click on that. And then I want you to scroll down to this option here, scatter graph with straight lines and markers. And you'll see there, okay, that the data has already been drawn for you. Okay, we've got a title, but that's not the right one. And we don't actually have anything on our axis. We need to amend that as well. You will see, however, we've got 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, which represents the time. So that's our independent variable, so we're happy with that. Whereas the numbers going up the side clearly refer to light intensity. So let's have a little play around with some of the controls and see what we can do to make this graph look lovely as we would like it to. Now the first thing that I notice here is that this graph doesn't really take up the biggest, it doesn't make the best available use of the space. So what we're going to do is try and move our axes. It doesn't have to always start at 0, 0 if our data doesn't start at 0, 0. So what I'm going to try and do is move this along so that our graph starts at around sort of at 9 o'clock. So all we have to do is double click on the horizontal axis. And there you will see it says axis bounds minimum 0, maximum 20. So I'm going to change the minimum there to 9. And you'll see what that does is shift the axes along so that we can see the data sort of more spread out, occupying a bigger area of the graph. And I'm going to then click on this axis here, because you can see it doesn't start till about 300. So why don't we change that axis there? So you can see it goes 0 to 600. Why don't we change it to 200? Okay, and again, that makes it nice and clear for us. So here's our graph of our data. Now, any good scientist will say, well, I don't know what this graph is currently showing. So we do need to add a couple of things on here, such as a good title and an axes title. So I'm going to click Add and Axes Title. And you can see that it's brought here Axis Title and Axis Title, which we can now edit. And we're pretty happy with that. So let's click on here. So hopefully you should say, well, that's going to be time on the 24-hour clock. And if I double click here, we'll highlight that again. And we can say this is light intensity, brackets, lux. So we've got the units and we've got the name. And then in a similar way, you can edit the title of your graph by double clicking. And well, what is this a graph to show? Well, remember, whenever we write a title for a graph, we can say we can link together our X and Y axes. So I'm going to say here a graph to show how light intensity changes between 10 a.m. and 6. Actually, let's put 10, keep it in keeping with our axes, 1000 hours and 18 o'clock, 24-hour clock. And I'm going to put in Keynsham on the 3rd of April, because that's specific, because that's where I collected the data from. And I'm going to just underline that and put it in bold. And there I have it. There is my graph. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, what I'd like you to do is to go through this video again, see if you can create your graph, and then I'd like you to do exactly the same for temperature. So by the end of this activity, you should have 2 graphs, one for light intensity, one for temperature, and I'd like you to leave them embedded within your area here. Well done.